We're watching a not so slow motion military coup by Donald Trump in plain sight. We've called it out before: the wholesale destruction of the Department of Justice, the capture of the Justice Department, the firing of ethicists, the firing of lawyers, the firing of judges, the militarization of America, the firing of admirals and generals. This is all the hallmarks of dictators. And now you've got Donald Trump trying to circumvent the delicate checks and balances set up by our founding fathers and framers, trying to fund the government on his own, tear down the White House, take in $130 million gifts when he can't do that when there's a shutdown going on, try to show everybody that he can use his billionaires to fund his evil plan. We talk about it on the Legal AF podcast, and here's a clip. Like, I learned that you can tear down the White House if you're the current occupant without permits or approval and build something else. I learned that you can fund the government without going to Congress, even during a shutdown, if you just take gifts from friends. You can just circumvent the appropriations clause and the spending clause and the checks and balance. You can just run your own government. Or is all of that illegal and unconstitutional? These are just some of the examples of why Donald Trump has effectively screwed himself and the American people. The shutdown, which is entering quickly, day 30. We may be setting the record soon for this shutdown. MAGA Congress has gone out of business. It used to just be a doormat, which at least you have to acknowledge a doormat and wipe your feet. MAGA Mike Johnson's just decided that he's just going to turn off all the lights. We don't need Congress at all, even to hold Donald Trump accountable, because why? That'll go down in history for him. And then we have all these violations of the Anti-Deficit or Deficiency Act by Donald Trump spending money on ballrooms and military and all of this, trying to circumvent. There are no funds to run the government, and you can't take them in. They keep saying, like, on the $130 million that came in from Tim Mellon, everybody goes scramble to look him up, everybody's showing these old photos of him from the 1980s in front of a railroad. Go show the current photo of him. He funded the wall effectively by himself. He's a MAGA donor. Some months and some quarters, 90% of the donations to Donald Trump is from Tim Mellon. So no shock that this $130 million anonymous gift to circumvent Congress comes in to pay, 38 hours of the military operation. And the government, because let's just round it out this way before we get to our first topic. We are watching a slow motion military coup by Donald Trump. And what you have to do in order to accomplish that is you first fire all the lawyers. So get rid of 5,000 people in the Department of Justice and don't replace them. Get rid of all of the guardrails within the Department of Justice, like public corruption and Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and ethicists and civil rights, and get rid of all of that. Then get rid of all the lawyers systematically who are inside of each of the cabinet level and departments and agencies. Get rid of them. So they're all fired and not replaced. Get rid of the ethicists. They're all fired, not replaced. Get rid of the inspectors general. Get rid of them. Now turn to the military. Put an idiot meat puppet in charge of the Department of Defense in Pete Hegseth. Then get rid of all of the generals and admirals and others with legacy knowledge and apolitical contribution to our national defense. You get rid of them. Then you militarize the National Guard and get it under your command. See where this is going now? Now get rid of Congress completely by bringing in your own funding. And what are we going to do about it now that we've identified it? We're going to continue to use what Rob Bonta, the Attorney General for California, told me is crowds, courts, and courage to fight back with lawsuits involving federal judges that you and I now follow hourly in all of these MAGA cases. There's 1,000 cases or so already been filed, and it matters. And then we need the crowd and the courage of the crowd. That's our audience. That's people on the streets, the 10 million people during No King's Day. That is to put public pressure on the elected officials. right? And then you got to have the courage. And of course, our audience exhibits that courage every day. We try to, and try to represent that here on Legal AF and MeidasTouch.
Yeah, I mean, that story that this reclusive billionaire, Timothy Mellon, paying $130 million to help pay troops during the government shutdown. That's the headline for the New York Times. So you explore it a little deeper and you go, okay, so what's the payroll on an annual basis for active duty reserve? $170 billion. What does that break down to per month? $14 billion or $3.3 billion per week or $466 million a day. So $130 million covers 6.7 hours of payroll for active duty reserve right now. And it's like, what are, other than showing that the norms don't matter, and perhaps a full tax deduction from that payment, what is the purpose of this? And I think there needs to be transparency. The fact that we don't know the amounts that corporations and private donors purportedly gave to demolish the East Wing of the White House and build a golden ballroom during a government shutdown, which is now on day 24 and will soon undoubtedly be the longest government shutdown in the history. But let's face it, the government was shut down 6, 7, 8 months ago, right? I mean, it's formalized that it's shut down, but they've been operating without the existence of a government for many, many, many months now. And, you know, finally, I think we see, to your point, the crowds, the courts, the courage coming together. The crowds were there. The courage was there. I don't think the courts are fully there right now, certainly not the Supreme Court, which has enabled a lot of this to happen by giving Trump absolute immunity. We've seen courage in district court judges like Judge Ellis from Chicago, Illinois, federal court judge, who we'll highlight on this show. There are federal court judges who show courage. The Trump-appointed judge in Portland, Oregon, for example, is another one, but not the United States Supreme Court. And we see Democrats, though, I think, finally fighting back and saying, we really should have done this. You know, we should have done this the first time. You know, we shouldn't have continued funding this authoritarian regime and what's taken place right here. And then Trump leaves and goes to Asia. He's gone. He's left the building. He's in Asia right now. And the first president in history to leave the country during a government shutdown. And then you have this phony Ponzi scheme-like market, in my opinion, while we're in a government shutdown, while the government is not showing inflation data. You know, they showed data related to Social Security, which showed inflation is above 3% year over year. Who even knows if you can trust that? But that's not the normal reporting that they do. They had to do that.
Have you shopped at a supermarket lately? Do you think inflation is 3% since Biden left office?
Exactly. Everything is double or triple. Right. As I describe it, when you go to the register and it goes beep, 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 you know, as they're showing the groceries, to me, it sounds like the monitor at a hospital. Right. And it's beep, 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 beep. You know, and I'm like, no, not that, not that, not that. And you look at the bill, it's like $330. And it would normally be $120. I mean, that's what Americans are experiencing. Now their healthcare premiums are about to go up, where $20,000 a year. That's what, without the subsidies, it's not like $5 a year, which would still be a struggle for a lot of people. $20,000 a year. And Donald Trump's like, oh, the Democrats are doing this. Just extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies so people can live. And so just we'll get into New York Attorney General Letitia James in just a moment. He's building a ballroom. He's demolished the East Wing. He's now saying he's building an ark. A triumphal Arc de Trump is now going to be built next, he says, by Lincoln. $40 billion has gone to Argentina, while 20 million Americans are losing their health care and 42 million Americans are now losing their supplemental nutrition assistance program.
And his press secretary said his number one priority is the ballroom.
And we know that. We didn't. And the thing is, people are like, oh, that's out of context. She said that's his number one building project. No, it's his number. We don't need her to lie regardless. We see that all he talks about is the ballroom, the arcs, you know, how rich he is.
Welcome back. We've been doing that show for 5 years. It's the top of the game for law and politics podcasts, and it's all because of you. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button on the Legal AF YouTube channel or here on the MeidasTouch network. In addition, you can get commercial-free versions of this podcast, the full-length podcast over on Legal AF Substack. Leave a 5-star review. Help us on YouTube. The bigger we are in the ratings, top 20, top 30, top 10, the bigger we are, the more protection we have for the inevitable attacks by the Trump administration. And if you can swing it, become a paid card-carrying member of the Legal AF community by becoming a Legal AF Substack paid subscriber for less than $7 a month. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.